Good afternoon, and welcome to today's professional development session. Topic for today is it's all about the presentation. So I'm delighted to have you joining us for this session. Within this session, we're going to think about what our current presentation practices are. We're going to think about how we integrate intent into those presentations. And we're going to conceptualize presentations as agents of change, and that might be a new thought, a new concept for you. So we're going to think about how that's going to work. If you are watching this on video, I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment while after I ask these questions, and jot some ideas down. If you are watching along with us virtually today, first of all, the first question is, when you create a presentation, what is your intent? How do you decide where you're headed with that presentation? And then the next question is, what is your go-to format? Most of us have a specific type of format that we are most comfortable with. And then the next question has to do with, okay, so we have a go-to format. What others do we have? What others have we used? So if you're joining us online, I invite you to share your answers to those questions. And if you are watching this video as a video, please pause and jot down the answers to those questions. Typically, I'm going to guess that most of us tend to go first to PowerPoint. That said, there's quite a few other methods of presentation. I know several in our office tend to use Google Slides. One of my personal preferences is Prezi as a presentation format, but I also use a presentation format that comes with the concept mapping software that I use. So there's a lot of different things out there and different ways of creating a presentation. So let's go back to intent. What is the intent? Why are we doing this? What do we want to accomplish by creating a presentation? Think about that for just a moment. I'll give our attendees an opportunity to respond.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Mary.
Hi, Miss Judy. Good seeing you. As far as the intent, I would say that for myself, the intent is to keep me on track and to kind of have a visual way of an outline to organize my ideas.
Yep.
So it helps me first kind of get organized. And then I believe there has to be an intent for what your students are getting out of your presentation.
Yes.
And that they can be active participants in the process. And I think that's where your whole presentation today is going. So in a way, I would say try to incorporate those receiving as much as possible into what you are doing. So it's not only your voice being heard.
Okay, so it's what you want them to get, but it also serves as your cue words for what you want to be sure you remember. And I will acknowledge that I do the same thing. I keep cue words on there, just what you see on the screen. So, okay, yeah, thank you, Nicole. Yeah, get a message across to whoever's going to be watching it. And that truly is the direction that we want to take today. So we want to think about that message and how we want it to come across to them. And I'm going to take us back to a concept that we use in almost everything that we do. Begin with the end in sight. So based on that thought, what is it we want to accomplish with the presentation, whatever the presentation is? What is it we want to accomplish with it? And how will we know that we've accomplished it? What evidence will accomplish that? And then what we need to do to get there. As far as with the presentation, what do we need to present in order to accomplish that goal? Just as within our content, what do we, beginning with the end in sight, think about the end result of what we want. I'm going to suggest that we think about the learning domains. Much of the time when we're delivering content, we are focused on the cognitive domain because that's where we want our students to go. But what I'm going to suggest is that we need to incorporate the affective domain as well in order to assure that the students are indeed going to be able to connect that message to something that they already know. So we're going to think about how we can incorporate both the cognitive and the affective domain in our presentations. A way of bridging the cognitive and the affective so that we are reaching them on an emotional level, on that affective level, on how they are able to connect. So, again, let's think about some sharing. And again, if you're watching this on video, pause for just a moment to jot down some answers to the questions. The question being, what can I add to my content delivery that could affect change both cognitively and affectively? I'm going to take some thinking on that, but I'm going to invite our attendees to join in and to think about how to add whatever it will take to make the change. Reach them both cognitively, but effectively as well. Any comments from those who are joining us? Okay, I think you're on, Mary.
Okay, so I would say add a little bit of yourself, maybe in the way of a personal anecdote, some kind of storytelling that frames it from a human perspective.
Okay.
So it's not dry, flat content, but it's also relevant to you and to your audience in a more personal way. And then, of course, there's animation, there's ways to make that content appear or disappear on the screen, so you don't give it all out at the very beginning, and you don't compete with yourself, with your own message. So it's either people listen to you or they read your words on the screen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've got a couple of things that address that point in just a moment. Yeah, making a personal connection one way or another with what it is you're trying to get across, with the message that you're working with, is definitely going to reach both the cognitive and the affective domain. So again, if there's give some thought to what it would take to make that happen. This is a quote from Chris Anderson, and Mr. Anderson is one of the editors for the TED Talks. And a successful talk is a little miracle. People see the world differently afterwards. And when I first heard this idea at a conference, it was sort of an eye-opener for me, because I, up until that point, hadn't thought about a presentation as being something that would change people. And of course, as a teacher, anytime we make a presentation, we're hoping that there will be some change, even a small one, a little miracle, that will happen as they go through and as they absorb that information. Mary, you referenced what they see and what they hear, and those are two important key items. If they see the information on the screen, then they don't need to hear you repeating what they see on the screen. They're capable of reading it. So what they see on the screen should be something that will help them make a connection between what you are saying, the information, the content that's being presented, along with what they are hearing. So something visual to make that connection. In my mind, it looks like these two guys are having a bit of a conversation about something. I'm not sure about what the weather's like that day, actually, I suppose. But it's making a connection between the conversation and what is being seen. As you are thinking about how you build your presentations, it's important to think about your own personal visual style. You may be someone who is a puppy and kitten sort of a presenter, in which case I'm sure that you are reaching your students' affective domain. And so then you want to make sure that you also have something that's going to make the content accessible to them as well. But you might also be the type that wants to have specific linear outline format, have it all up there for them. The one on the bottom is a means of kind of combining those two. We have several instructors in math that we work with, and in order to truly get the ideas of those formulas across, there needs to be a visual. We recently saw a demonstration about how to visually see those formulas and how those formulas connect and what they actually mean. And so being able to make that connection with the visual style along with the content is really an important piece of it. And I think you mentioned this earlier. I think both Mary and Nicole mentioned it, that there has to be a personal connection. Maybe not quite this personal, but you have to be able to put context to what you are saying, make it real for them, make it something that they're going to be using. We have several instructors who deal with foreign languages, and so there has to be a way of letting the students know this is where and how you would be using this particular information in another country. So a way of making the content come alive, making it personal, through visual, through the stories, through the way you share how that information is truly important. So I have another sharing opportunity here, and this is a question we've thought about and talked about in here. Again, if you are watching this on a video, please pause and take a moment to jot some of these ideas down. We usually have a feeling inside when something has truly worked. So what does it take? What does it look like to really rock that presentation, and how is it that you know? So if you're watching this, jot down those ideas, and we'll let those who have joined in with us share their ideas about what does it look like when you know that you've accomplished a successful presentation. I believe your mic is on, Mary, if you have a comment.
Oh, of course I do.
Good.
So I feel that at a point, I feel that, oh, this is about me. He's talking about me, or he's talking, or she's talking about something that, in a way, speaks to me at some point, at a level. I remember a TED Talk that was given by a doctor, and he was saying how our health system was broke. And I mean, who will not relate to that, right? Who hasn't been frustrated or having problems getting what they need when it comes to health? So he phrased it, he put it within a framework that I really believed whatever he was saying had to do with me, and it wasn't really about health at a personal level. It was about the administration of health, and it was more for leaders of that industry. But at a point, I felt, oh, that's something I could have thought about. So that's one thing, and the other is if there's anything there that I can transfer, that I can use in my own classes, something that I can tell my students about. So if there's something there that I would reuse, I think that's how I know that presentation really made it for me.
And you referenced the TED Talks, and again, that quote was from, that previous quote was from Chris Anderson, who was one of the editors of the TED Talks, and that's some of the information that they truly, for whatever reason, even the ones that are on topics that I don't necessarily feel a real personal connection to, and yet the way they come across, the way they speak and relate about whatever the content is, really drives it home, gets it that personal.
Yeah.
Again, that connection between the cognitive and the affective domain.
Yeah.
Nicole. Yeah. Yeah, when we're doing something face to face, we usually get visual cues from the audience, and sometimes not necessarily the cues we want if they're alert or seeming to be alert, but even if we're not, even if we don't see the visual, we have a feeling of how things are going, how we are being received. Any other attendees that would like to speak up? Okay, so again, think about it, about what components, what was it that made it for you in a presentation that worked, or from the other perspective, if you have something that didn't work, why not? What would you do? How would you do it differently for the next time? this is a quote that, while it doesn't specifically apply to presentations, it does because as teachers, almost everything that we do are presentations. So professional development as a conscience of academics. And it makes us aware, gives us reason to think about what we do and the why of what we do, and the opportunity to continually move ourselves forward and to make it more effective as we go ahead and go forward. So what's your takeaway from this? I've jotted a few down, but I'd like for you to think about that as well. What's your takeaway? Is there something, how have you changed? What has been the change in your perspective on a presentation of any format? Yeah, excellent. Excellent. And yeah, Mary, what's your takeaway?
I was thinking about an event that I attended. It was like a convention, and they were using music, and there was a director telling people what to do, when to clap, so it was very staged, and I think we do not want that. If there's going to be any reaction in our audience, I would say it needs to come from them. It needs to be self-directed. So I guess the takeaway is put in that presentation enough of yourself and enough of a generic kind of ingredient that your audience can respond to without making it like a fake kind of thing that I'm doing.
Okay, yeah, so that it happens organically, that it's a natural. And we would hope that all of our presentations would have that effect. Clearly, many don't, but that's okay. And so what I saw as I was planning this one is that we think about the intent. We're beginning the Wiggins and Mackay understanding by design concept of beginning with the end in sight, thinking about where we want them to go ultimately and how to get them there, and providing for ourselves initially and our participants, providing that opportunity for a change in perspective. So, oh yes, absolutely. And there may be times where that's not always as easy as we would like. If we're talking about a presentation for a class, then we have a pretty clear concept of who the audience is and where they need to go with it. But if you're thinking about a presentation for a conference, you may not be able to quite be that specific with it. But yes, having an understanding of audience as well. So there's several opportunities to think about where we want them to go. Thank you. This is just the list of the resources, and I'll make sure that this list goes out in the thank you notes. And we have next week we'll be talking about visual literacy, and the following week gamification basics. And we've got some really great content to share with you on that. So that said, thank you so much for joining in this session today. I appreciate your input. If you're watching online, you are welcome to connect with us. And if you're watching video of it, you're welcome to connect with us, reach out for any additional information that would be helpful for you. Thank you so much.